Humanity is often left astray. We're often left astray as we try to figure out exactly what we should be focusing on. When we struggle to make focus, we get confused. Nothing hurts us more than when we don't have our focus in the right direction. And I feel we have a problem that we haven't had focus on for a very long time. Specific individuals throughout history have had a focus on this, but society as a whole has largely ignored it. And until we can overcome it, we will continue to repeat our history. To enter into the world of challenging ideas and engaging in debate is to enter a world of criticisms and assumptions. No matter how rational you consider your viewpoints, or no matter how moral and ethical you wish to present yourself to those around you or to the greater world as a whole, you will be presented with unfounded assumption and loose criticisms of the ideas you wish to represent. There is an instinctual response in a lot of us that will put fuel on a fire that doesn't need to burn. When you take on ideas and perspectives, you naturally bring them into your personal being. To allow your emotions to overtake you when criticized, whether it be fair or unfair in your eyes, is to do damage to your well-being. Emotions stifle logical debate and understanding. Emotions, however, are a guiding force that leads us to both rational and irrational conclusions. The more you realize that logic itself is first guided by emotional response, the more you can put a damper on the emotional rises you may feel when you are questioned for what you hold belief in. You cannot allow yourself to become a slave to your emotions or the ideas you wish to propagate. Instinctual nature is a beast that must be understood and tamed. Instinctual nature is the immediate response of the mind when presented with any idea or set of information, and whether you agree with the information presented is irrelevant in this understanding. To break free of these emotions is to not throw them under a rug, hiding them from the guiding light of critical thought. To break free and overcome is to allow yourself to feel the emotions that reside within you, and to present questions to yourself about whether or not your responses and feelings are doing you justice or injustice when it comes to feeling them out in their entirety. We experience the same base emotions that all of our ancestors experienced, going all the way back to the days of discovering how to light a fire to keep warm. To view ourselves as anything different from our most primal ancestry is disingenuous to the human condition, for the world would be a much less problematic place if we truly had total understanding and control of these parameters. What has changed is the information we have access to and the ways in which we can communicate our findings. Throughout time and the recordings of history, we find that history repeats, and history repeats because of primal emotions. Each generation that comes into the world has a generalized view that they know better than the previous generations, and this has led us down the dark path of repeating the mistakes of our ancestors, no matter how civilized and technologically advanced we are. It can be argued with this generalized line of thought that we are regressing with each generation that comes to pass. The only way we can break free of this tyranny of emotions we constantly put ourselves under is to understand that human beings have been slaves to our most primal instincts for as long as humans have existed. We simply have cooler and often more dangerous toys to play with. Those who play with the devil's toys are brought by degrees to wield his sword, and oftentimes we swing that blade without consideration and without understanding that it is even a blade to begin with. We not only weaponize our actions, we weaponize our thoughts. I do not present this information under the idea that I know more than anyone else. I understand that even while writing the script for this video, that my conscious being is guided by the primal subconscious. To break free of enslavement of the mind is to open your mind to understanding what it is that makes us who we are, as individuals and as a species all together. Fear is one of the most powerful of these emotions. Fear drives anxiety and adrenaline, the fight or flight response. We now live in an age where ideas can get you into legal consequences. This has happened in history before, with tyrannical governments running separate nations. But the call for a global union and authority threatens to put us right back where we've been in times before. Feudalistic servitude. The longer we deny that our emotions drive us first and foremost, the longer we'll go making the same mistakes in our everyday lives, as well as making the same mistakes generation after generation. History does show that we have been able to overcome this pattern, as we are still here to discuss it. However, the longer we go about making the same mistakes, our capabilities of self-destruction will continue to become more prevalent. We can only do so much damage to the world as a whole before she collapses, and this is why the Roman Empire is on the minds of many, as well as all great empires before and after it. Rome was the peak of civilization in the known world that they lived in. They achieved many great things and most likely held the same views of generations past, that they knew better than those before them. They probably were not aware of the inevitable collapse that they created, in the same way that we aren't aware of the collapse coming to our civilizations now. The major difference now is that we have greater ties of global connectedness that the Romans of the past would have died and killed for. A massive problem has emerged in the wake of our advancement of communication and partnership. We have not mastered the solidarity of nations and the people within them, yet we seek to connect the world in such a way that it does irreversible damage when suddenly disconnected. As civilized society evolves in terms of what we are technically capable of, we lose understanding of what it is like to be uncivilized, to lack a structure and hierarchy that you can call upon to meet the needs and wants you are not capable of meeting as an individual, especially as you increase the scales of what we consume and produce. We haven't thought of a contingency plan for collapse, as most nations throughout history haven't as well. For we cannot imagine a world where we make the same or even worse mistakes than those who have preceded us. We are better than that, correct? The answer is no. We are not better than that. We are simply ignoring the deepest causality of the fall of civilization as a whole, and why our nations, even disconnected from one another, continue to fail time and time again. We have not mastered the understanding of the individual and what drives each person to the existence that they may or may not hold dearly. The whole is the sum of its parts, and the most simple part of humanity, the individual, continues to fail. This effect stacks as you increase the connectedness of individuals all around the world. Individuals fail. Groups, gangs, bands, tribes, all fail as a result. If tribes and other smaller collectives of individuals fail, then larger societies will fail all the same. The root cause of this failure is the code of the individual. We are not a simple machine that has been perfected. We are not the wheel, and the tires that give traction to our thoughts and actions can deflate and become defunct at any point for any reason. Cogs and gears can become seized, screws can be stripped, wedges can be crushed, levers can become unbalanced. Constant maintenance of the self is required, yet we often feel as we age that the work that we have done on ourselves is enough, and the truth is, it never is enough. We have not learned to let go of the ego. We have centered ourselves too close to the sun, so to speak. We are our greatest ally and worst enemy, all in the same breath. Hindsight is 20/20, but foresight is beyond our total understanding. For we cannot control the flow of time. We can only predict. We cannot truly know the outcomes of the future, for we are not God. These ideas seem simple or even obvious to some, but note that your reaction to everything starts at the beginning levels of understanding, the levels that guide survival. When we feel our being is threatened, either physically, emotionally, or spiritually, we feel the rise that comes with it. We must become masters of the forces within us, or society cannot prevail. Humanity runs on limited time, yet we don't make the most of the time that we have, even with the understanding that it is finite. We can't fully understand what it is like to no longer exist on an individual level, so we automatically lose understanding of what that is like on a national and especially a global scale. We are constantly distracted by ourselves and the world around us. Work to break free of distraction and ego, and you have a chance of evolving the self past our conventional understandings of it. Individuals have managed this in the past, but until a majority can come to an understanding of the self, like we've come to understand water as a source of life, we will continue to fall further and further from the grace of God. We will not grow forever. All great empires and civilizations before us have fallen. It is delusional to think that we are removed from the same fate, for some would argue that the damage is already done and there is no turning back from the next greatest downfall.